Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So, as we're a few days away from the reveal of Renegades, the question of what's going on with the story and lore is going to become more relevant very soon. Of course, with that in mind, we can look to the recent lore and what we know about Renegades and can try and get an idea of what's going on ahead of time. With that in mind, there's a weird bit of lore that I think is going to be really important in the days ahead, which I wanted to bring up now. It's nothing new, in fact, I've had this mentioned to me so many times on stream that I felt weird waiting this long to make a video on it, but it's an important topic nonetheless, so here we are covering it today. We're going to talk about the time that Xur got mugged recently. Yeah, weird, but here we are. Honestly, it might have relevance to Renegades, so we're going to bring it up. I don't think I need to explain who Xur is or what his function is. The man is notorious for selling his wares and for Guardians missing out on them. Don't believe me for some reason? Well, just find a Destiny 1 veteran friend and ask them about the one time Xur sold Gjallarhorn and like everybody missed the opportunity to buy it. You'll get the picture real quick based on rage or relief shown in their face. But with that in mind, it all raises a really good question, which is simply, if Xur has such valuable stuff, why hasn't anyone tried robbing Xur before? And the honest answer to that question is, I don't know. I can provide you with no reason as to why we Guardians didn't just look at Xur and just say, "Oi, I'll be having that, mate," before giving him the Essex special. Also, I'm allowed to make that joke, my family has roots in Southend, damn it. All that being said, whilst Xur hasn't necessarily been mugged before, he has been attacked before. It's just never been with the accompanied intent of explicitly stealing his wares. Shortly after Sieur Ido was killed by the Nine, Mara Sov sent Orin to discover if the Nine had murdered her deliberately. In the process of this investigation, Orin found and interrogated Xur, and supposedly even broke his spine with a strike from her hammer in the process. So yeah, Xur has been attacked before, we just don't know whether he took any permanent damage from the attack. My gut tells me that in the moment he did, but that the Xur we see each week isn't necessarily using the same body. It's the way he goes on about the cells of this body as though they're somehow separate from him that makes me suspect that. Now, all that being said, we now have a report of this other attack which comes from the lore of this season that came along with Edge of Fate. In particular, it's from the As Without lore book, which you can find by collecting the various datapads from across the system and the activities in the portal. Each of these datapads comes with a little bit of the lore book in question, and after it's all collected you get a full page over in your lore collectibles that combines it all for convenient reading. The page we're looking into in particular is called Treacherous Contacts. A little context on these communications before we start. They're seemingly addressed to Ikora Rey, from context we get at the very beginning, and the messages concerning various illicit activities around the system predominantly performed by Cabal agents. However, there are some notes that are worth bringing up right away. First of all, the lore entry mentions the response of the Praxic Order to these threats. It also comes with so-called Cormorant-level encryption. The mention of the word Cormorant in the encryption makes me think that this is a communication from someone bearing the Cormorant seal. For all that they're mentioned in the lore, we don't actually know much about this group, except that they're the ones who rallied the Guardians into the army that marched on Luna in the Great Disaster, and that there are many famous Praxic Order warlocks who have borne the Cormorant seal. In particular, two come to mind. Eriana III, the long-deceased lover of Wei Ning who was slain by Crota's forces, and the more relevant of the two, Arnor Mahal, the executioner of the Hidden and one of the most trusted hunters of rebel guardians that Ikora has at her disposal. Considering that Arnor is a Praxic warlock, is one of Ikora's most trusted guardians, and also bears the Cormorant seal, it is almost certain that she is the one communicating. In fact, she's also used this format to communicate in the lore many years ago. So yeah, this series of messages is almost certainly from Arnor Mahal to Ikora. It also shows us something crucial about Arnor's character, which is that when she starts to sniff out injustice or something going wrong, it's kind of an itch that she'll never be able to scratch unless she chases that lead. She just can't let it go. She was the one who investigated the Drifter back in the season of the Drifter, and her investigations were quite thorough. Thorough enough that there is a whole attached quest and lore book. So, with all that in mind, let's take a listen to what Arnor was communicating to Ikora. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. Naturally, the Praxic Order is concerned with the proliferation of reality-altering technology, but the Order's mandate is not the protection of the city or even humanity. It's to combat the agents of darkness. Until the Vex fall within those parameters, the Order respectfully declines. Sorry, Ikora. I tried. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. Normally I wouldn't get out of bed to track Cabal activity, but the Hidden are reporting a new sect at work on Mars. Their livery and weapons are fresh, and they're doing brisk trade with the local gangs. Not within our purview, I know, but it bears watching. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. According to Omar St. Croix, this new faction of Cabal are big players in the Martian arms trade. They have guns and armor for sale beyond the usual refurbished Red Legion junk. Someone out there with real manufacturing clout is behind them. To what end? I'm not sure yet. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. I know the Martian Cabal isn't a sanctioned target, but mark my words, it's only a matter of time. Nobody stockpiles this much gear without hedging against Guardian interference. They'll want paracausal weapons sooner or later, and by the time we see them in the field, it'll be too late. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. I told you it was only a matter of time before this new Cabal faction went after paracausal weapons, and here we are. A hit squad wearing their livery mugged Xur in the Winding Cove, cased him until all the Guardians left, then gave him the old Dark Age stick-up. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. Here's the inventory of everything stolen from Xur. 1 bad juju, 1 malfeasance, 1 ruinous effigy, 1 flight records. Left all the strange coins, glimmer, and standard gear. Clearly knew what they were after. This won't be their last attempt to secure advanced weaponry. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. After reviewing the Xur case file, something sticks out. The flight data. They didn't just want the weapons, they wanted to know where he got them. They wanted his contacts. Looking back, that might have been the real target all along. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. Looks like I was right about the flight records being the real target of Xur's stick-up. Intercepted comms from an unidentified Cabal ship included references to Xur's Dominion and Eternity. The message repeats 9 times. Somebody's trying to make contact. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. I think the Renegade Cabal are making headway. Our undercovers on Mars report their lieutenants out trading for samples of periodic elements, most of them benign. Tungsten, iodine, ytterbium, neodymium, the list goes on. And not in quantities useful for manufacturing either. Something's up. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. I put out feelers with the fallen mob in Tharsis. Rumor is the Cabal have their Scion engineers building a cipher device using periodic elements as its key. Not the words for the elements, but the elements themselves. They have to be getting outside help. And I mean way outside. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. The hidden listening post on Mars reports a spike in local comms traffic. Whatever the Cabal were hoping to gain from Xur's flight records and their elemental cipher, it seems to have worked. We still don't know who's backing the Martian faction, but they've got big plans. Cormorant level encrypted message follows. Our agents have been making indirect inquiries to the other gangs in Tharsis. Word is the Cabal are looking for the Drifter, and more specifically the Derelict. I get the feeling Drifter stepped in something rancid and he's about to track it all over our carpet. Where is that scumbag? So yeah, if it wasn't obvious enough that this was Arnor's messages, then her choice of words to call the Drifter a scumbag really helps to push the point home. So, how does this link to Renegades? Well, let's break it down bit by bit. First of all, we know that the Renegades storyline is going to feature the Cabal. This is thanks to the trailer where we see the interior of a Cabal ship. This also levels with the Renegades description for the expansion as given on the Director timeline, which is up in the top right. It states that we'll be taking on an evil empire and exploring a criminal underworld. The Cabal in question were wearing an unknown livery, which implies that they weren't loyalists of Keitel or Callus or the Red Legion remnants. That means we're perhaps dealing with some form of Cabal offshoot. Maybe this is something to do with the Scions instead, who knows. Their rebellious factions have been growing in the background for a rather long time, so it's possible that a figure like Otzot or Amtek or Yurix is leading this faction. Now, as for the actual robbery of Xur, whilst I'm sure the paracausal weapons weren't the true prize to be taken from Xur, it is worth noting that each of them is a powerful tool that channels darkness in some form or another. No, none of them are strand or stasis weapons. However, bad juju is empowered by the hungry principles instilled within it by Toland the Shattered, the simple ideals of the sword logic made manifest. Ruinous Effigy was a gift from the Black Fleet. With years' worth of understanding now behind us, we can probably assess that this was a portion of the Witness's power from the Pyramid ships reshaping the Tree of Silver Wings on Io as a gift to us, a weapon of great power that would allow us to reshape reality as well. And as for Malfeasance, well, it was a dark weapon charged with taken power by the Drifter himself. A weapon that he thought might be a powerful enough tool to take on Shin Malphur and his last word. But of course, it's the flight records that were the real prize for the Cabal, and it shows given that supposedly, according to Arnor and her assessment, their plan worked. We still don't know what any of that amounted to, but the fact that they communicated with something out there 9 times implies that they might actually be communicating with one of the 9, in which case we have a much bigger contest on our hands. The other fact we've been able to establish is that they want to get their hands on the Drifter, or more accurately the Derelict, but I don't think the Derelict is the real prize. I think what it's dragging is, namely, the Haul. As a reminder, that's the big ball that the Drifter has carried around behind his ship for a while now. As a further reminder, this is an engine of potential that was gifted to the Drifter by the 9, and the true extent of its power is unknown, but it was able to briefly resurrect 3. Further reminder, at the end of the campaign, when we hear the Drifter talking about himself, what happened, and the aftermath of the resurrection of 3, he says that the Haul reappeared back with his ship like nothing ever happened. So yeah, even after the escapade with 3, it's still there. So if the Cabal are looking for the Haul, they're looking for this engine of potential, why would they want it? I think the answer in broad terms is actually fairly simple. It's a source of power. What they want to use that power for is the real million-dollar question, and potentially how it fits into the Elemental Cipher and whatever Xur's flight logs gain the Cabal. We also need to separately consider where the Cabal are getting their manufacturing assistance from, given that their weapons are supposedly top tier. I think it might be worth noting that this might be the origin point for our storyline involving the vast criminal underworld, and with that in mind, I think one should look to foundries such as Haka and the Spider. That's inconclusive, but I know that Spider has had dealings with disgruntled Haka personnel before, so them making moves for the sake of profit and destabilizing the Guardians wouldn't be too far of a stretch. That being said, we still don't know for sure who is actually in charge of this manufacturing presence that's being bound up with this new Cabal faction. There is, of course, one final darker note to make of all of this. The Dredgen. We hear a lot about how the Cabal are being led and that they're being given outside assistance from someone else. There are a few potential candidates for who the Dredgen is, Janna 14 being probably the most prominent, but I think the important thing about them is to start contemplating their motive at this point. It takes a lot to assume a title that dark without the horrifying prerequisite of at least one Gambit reset every season. Yes, I'm looking at you, Ducks. Whatever they want the Drifter and his derelict for simply cannot be good. But the fact that they're a Dredgen means that we can instantly assume that their motives are turbocharged with evil, and with the traditional dark powers of the Weapon of Sorrow that they inevitably are going to wield. Dark Hive magic and the human mastery of war, built into a single weapon frame. A combo made appropriately in hell. And all of it might be gunning for the Drifter. I've seen a few wild theories out there already about this, but I want to hear yours. Where do you think this storyline goes? Do you think it relates to Renegades at all? And what do you reckon is going to happen and come from those flight logs? I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. And remember that you can get more lore from universes near and far by hitting subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But, as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.